Welcome to Inspired Living with Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector. Every Wednesday, Marc, along with his special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Marc will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Marc is a tested, certified, and professional spiritual medium, metaphysical teacher, healer, and spiritual advisor with a spiritual practice based in Seattle, Washington. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be in this magical, magnanimous, magnificent, majestic, marvelous, metaphysical, miraculous, mind-awakening, mind-blogging, and mind-blowing planet of ours. This is Inspired Living Radio and Podcast. I am your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, where we like to say, you are the inspired and the inspiration, so let's be inspired, let's inspire others, and let's inspire before we expire. We're going to have another fabulous episode today. I will be the host and the guest as I have a topic I wanted to discuss, and something that has been coming up lately through my meditations. I've seen it in reality, the difference of, is there a difference between religion and spirituality? Some like to say religion versus spirituality. I don't really make it a competition. I just want to, share with you on this episode the differences and go through some of the breakdowns of what the religious pathway looks like, something I had in the first half of my life, and what the spiritual pathway looks like, what I've enjoyed the second half of my life. So we're going to discuss this on today's episode, and we're going to prospect and discover the many diamonds that are in each and every one of us, and the many gems in our world that have yet to be revealed. So get comfortable, grab your favorite drink, tea or coffee, kick back, sit back, or even lie back, and just take a nice, deep, healing, cleansing breath. Breathing in what you want, exhaling what you don't, and let's learn together as we discuss today's topic, religion and spirituality. Is there a difference? And the journey and the many pathways of life to dream, discover, and explore and experience through the mind, the body, and the spirit for another inspiring, uplifting, and educational episode here of Inspired Living. I want to give a big shout out, as I always do, to our listeners, those of you that find us on the many different channels, wherever you get your favorite podcasting shows. But we want to always say thank you to the inspired listeners from around the globe, the universe, and beyond. My team and I here at Inspired Living are always so grateful, humbled, and just thankful for you listening, downloading, subscribing, leaving reviews, and you voted based on your downloads, based on the data. Feed Source has made Inspired Living a rated best inspirational and best in spiritual show to follow and listen to, as, like I said, sourced by FeedSpot. And there's thousands of podcasts out there, so anytime we get any kind of recognition on the show, we really appreciate it, and we really appreciate you. So thank you for listening to the live broadcast today, or catching the encore shows throughout the week, or catching the podcast again wherever you get your favorite podcast. If you have not yet subscribed, liked, or followed the show, there's always time to do so over on our main social media platforms. The main ones right now are Facebook. You just look for Inspired Living Radio and Podcast Community Group, and you can join the listeners from all around the globe. We're also on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter. Just look for Inspired For Us. That is the number 4, Inspired For Us. Or you can go over to our YouTube channel through Om Times. Look for Inspired Living Radio. And we are now streaming as well through Audible. And you can, like I said, you can get your favorite podcast on wherever you listen to your podcast, whatever platform that is. Or you can simply say, if you have an Alexa, you can simply say, Alexa, open up Inspired Living Podcast to play this latest episode. So I always like to say it's a new day, a new opportunity, a day we've not seen before to use our intuition to prospect this wonderful world around us. Are we ready to go prospecting? I know that I am, so let's do this. So today's episode, like I said, I love how consciousness, how signs, symbols, synergy, synchronicities work. If you pay attention to the pattern of three, it's something I long paid attention to long before I started down the spiritual pathway as a retired firefighter, first responder, EMT. And we'd always see things happen in threes. And along the line, in my spiritual pathway, I would notice these synchronicities or coincidences happening in a three-time pattern. You'd either see it on TV, or you read it in a book, or somebody is talking about it. And it was just interesting because I kept seeing that, is there a difference between religion and spirituality? Because they're often used interchangeably, but there are distinct differences between the two. And this has come up throughout the week, and I'm like, okay, let's. I hear you, universe. I hear you, spirit. I'll do a episode to help inspire and educate those that may not know the difference of religion and spirituality. And I would be one of those when I started on this path almost 2 decades ago down the spiritual pathway. I was actually raised in a religious, very staunch Catholicism household. Where you had to go to church, you had on Sunday mornings had to get up and watch, religious television, and really kind of force-fed the religious doctrine of Catholicism. And I just want to point out in today's episode, there's never any disrespect to any of the religions around the world. There's over 5,000 different religions around the globe. I have taken the liberty through my own prospecting journey and that with my spiritual development group online and my students, we've actually studied in detail the top 10 religions around the globe. And when you do that, and I would recommend you do that to start off this show today, is look at the locations in that religion. And there are many similarities to the religions around the world, especially the top 10 religions. Now, each religion, does different, as people do, right? As thoughts do. But for today's show, I want to really just break down the religious pathway versus the spiritual pathway, because again, I hear them often used interchangeably, but there are distinct differences, and even offer you a step-by-step breakdown on how religion is quite different from spirituality. So, with that, let's just start, as I like to do, I like to start with the definition of words. Why do we say the things that we do in today's age? Why are these words used? What's the definition? And so the definition of religion, if we were to actually look just at religion refers to a specific set of organized beliefs, practices, rituals, and dogmas that are shared by a community and or an institution. So we have to include institutions as part of the religious conversation now. So it often includes a system of worship and the adherence to a particular faith tradition. That is the definition of religion. Now, if we were to give a different perspective, because that's what we like to do as a spiritualist, we always say our strength is our ability to shift perspectives. The definition of spirituality, on the other hand, is a broader and more personal concept. What it does is involves the search for meaning, purpose, and connection to something greater than ourselves. It's often characterized by individual experiences, beliefs, and practices. And what I love about my spiritual pathway that I started, like I said, 2 decades ago, it really created the concept of the Intuitive Prospector. Now, that's my business name, that's trademarked, the Intuitive Prospector, but it's a concept. It's more of not so much my business, it's a concept of helping people to use their intuition, because I firmly believe that everybody has intuition, whether they choose to use it or not. That's always through free will and choice. But if you are an Intuitive Prospector as a concept, the prospector goes out in a world that he or she may not know, searching, exploring, discovering through hard work too. It takes, if you've ever been out prospecting on anything in a river basin, up in the hills, it's quite labor intensive if you're digging a lot, and it takes time and patience, and you're digging into unknown areas, and sometimes you discover, the riches of the earth, because if you think about all the riches, almost all of them come from the planet Earth, of what we use in, commodity and exchange and capitalism, including money, which is, paper cut down from trees. So if you're an Intuitive Prospector, it's using your intuition to find what's right for you. And that's how I really coined my spiritual pathway was the Intuitive Prospector, and now helping other people find not just the diamonds that are out there all around the world, because there's a lot this world offers, the unknown, the metaphysics, the paranormal, the phenomenon. We could go on and on about the mysteries of the planet, the universe, space, and time. But here we also have that diamond within, and we know that under extreme stress and pressures that diamonds are created. And maybe some of you think that diamonds sparkle. Actually, they reflect. They don't actually sparkle. But in society, it's, shine bright like a diamond. And so that I help people through the Intuitive Prospector concept to explore their world around them, and also to explore within them their gifts, their abilities, who they are, to know thyself. Because if you can find that diamond within and reveal that, your life can change. And that's what I found through spirituality. So again, the definitions between religion is referring to a specific set of organized belief practices, rituals, and dogmas that are shared by a community or institution, and may have been for thousands of years. Some of these religions are very old. But in spirituality, it's a more broader and personal concept, and it involves a search for meaning, purpose, and connection to something greater than oneself. And it's often characterized by individual experiences, beliefs, and practices. There's a saying that I had once heard when I was starting to shift from my religious pathways and beliefs and following to my spiritual pathway, and it's when you have that personal experience, that belief, that vision, that phenomenon that takes place, many people in society call you crazy. But if you read about somebody in a book that had the same experience than you did, maybe it was 100 years ago, 3,000 years ago, we call that religion. And a lot of people write about their personal experiences. And so I always kind of laughed at that, because I've had, in my journey of going down the spiritual path, I've had a lot of amazing experience. I've had an NDE, which is a near-death experience. I've had an OBE, which is an out-of-body experience. I've been an experiencer with UFOs and what we now call today unidentified aerial phenomenon. I've also had experiences now with nature and plant medicine, and have really gone down the spiritual rabbit hole to know myself and realize that we have so much to offer if we're willing to be the Intuitive Prospector and explore our world around us and the many gifts and abilities that lie within each of us. So as we move down on the difference of religion and spirituality, is there a difference? I find that religion is based on structure and beliefs. And religions have organized structures, like I said. They also have hierarchies and established dogmas or doctrines that outline specific beliefs and practices. They often have religious texts. They also have clergy or prescribed rituals. The difference from religion to a spiritual structure and belief is spirituality is more flexible and individualistic. What it does, it doesn't necessarily follow a specific structure or set of beliefs. What it does, it allows us as individuals, and as a full member spiritualist of the Spiritual National Union over in the UK, it allows us to explore our own beliefs, our experiences, and a connection to the divine or a higher power in a way that resonates with us personally. And what that has found for me, when we talk about the divine in religion, the divine was it was very masculine, to be honest with you. The only woman that we ever really talked about was Mother Mary in Catholicism, but everything else was based on a male perspective and very misogynist. And when I opened up to my spiritual pathway, I found that the divine feminine, Mother Divine, was actually part of this hierarchy in conjunction with Father God, but also the Great Spirit world. So I really kind of break it down back to that three things happen in threes: Father God, Mother Divinity, the Great Spirit. Some may know it as the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. And different religions have different formats, but it's usually that three-word phrase that refers to something bigger than ourselves. So when it comes to divinity, I make that very broad. Whatever divinity is for you, whatever God is for you, whether you're a believer in God, great. Whether you're agnostic, which at times I have been, where you want proof of God, great. Or you're an atheist and you believe at the end of this physical journey, this vibrational matter flesh suit that we wear ends and you go into the ground and that's it, that's okay too. That is your personal belief and that's your choice. Free will and choice will always dictate where we go. But I can tell you, since my journey of going down the spiritual pathway has unlocked many, many unbelievable things that seeing is believing, but also feeling is believing. And I prefer the structure and belief of that of a spiritual pathway versus a religious structure belief pathway. Now, another difference between the two. Religion, when it comes to community, religion often emphasizes on community and the collective experience of worship and practice, which is great. I've been a part, even in a spiritual pathway, I've been part of a community. I've done worship, I've done drum circles, I've done rituals and ceremonials. Very, very powerful as a community. But at the same time, I also witnessed in that community through religion a lot of backbiting, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of gossip. And that's not something that I ever resonated with. In fact, some of my most disturbing memories come from my religious days working in the church and seeing behind the scenes with senior leadership and the lack of morality and ethics that would take place. And that, for me, was very hard to witness and watch, but at the same time learn. You pull that curtain back, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, But what I found was, in religion, it's often emphasized on community and that collective experience of worship and practice, and it provides a sense of belonging. There is a purpose to that. I get that. There's a sense of belonging and an identity within a specific religious group, but also with that community versus individuality. Community a lot of time can impress upon us to have that group think, follow the herd, be the sheeple, don't think for yourself, and that can be a very dangerous place. That's how cults are born, right? That's, you just do what you're told, do as I say, not as I do kind of format. And that's, if you ever run into that, make that a red flag and be like, is this really the community I want to be in? And you have to decide that, right? Where spirituality, the difference there is spirituality is going to be, again, more focused on that individual experience and personal growth. And I find through the personal growth that I've had over these last few years, from changing career, semi-retirement, a major back surgery, I have really grown personally in my spiritual pathway more than I ever thought I would. And it's that old adage: be careful what you ask for, because a lot of times the universe, the spirit world, those on the other side will deliver that for you. And what it encourages, though, in the spiritual pathway, in a community versus individual format, it encourages self-reflection. It encourages introspection and the development of a personal relationship, again, with the divine or a higher power, whatever you choose that to be. But if you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, I can tell you that energy never dies. Many people have talked about this for centuries, scientists included, gurus, prophets, that energy is always, everything is energy, and energy always has to go somewhere. Even the laws of physics define it, that energy doesn't just cease to exist. And so when you connect with this energy, whether you call it the divine, whether you call it Father God, Mother Divine, the great spirit world, the afterlife, Summerland, they have many different definitions, but what you're doing is you're developing a personal relationship with something bigger than yourself. And even, Tesla talked about this back in the 1800s. If you want to unlock the secrets of the universe, you start thinking in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. For example, when we were born, we were put into this physical flesh suit at a very low vibration. And as we grow and we age through education, we gain knowledge and wisdom, but our vibration also changes. It increases, it speeds up, it gets a little bit, different than when we're first born. And that's part of that pathway of development, personal relationship, and connection with the higher power or divine, whatever that may be. So, people ask me all the time, as a professional psychic, as a professional medium, who has done thousands of readings all around the world, people say, Mark, where is heaven? And I have to remind them that, in our mindset that Einstein talked about all the time, our brain, which is one of the most, it's a 3-pound complexity that we don't fully understand. It's one of the most complex organisms in the entire solar system, is our brain. But when we think in terms of up or down in a 3D format of what we see as the planet Earth, yeah, we think heaven is being up, because a lot of times people, including my experience, I ascended out of my body going up, looking back at my body. So we think that heaven is up, and the alternative is hell, which is down. But I always remind people that we're on a round planet going around a big ball of fire in a universe that's mathematically incomprehensible. So it's metaphysically impossible to go up and or down on something that's round. And so what I teach people and what I tell people is that heaven isn't a location. Heaven is a vibration, the same vibration that's in your heart, the same energy in your heart. And when that changes, that's when it reveals itself. The veil, the spiritual world, death, whatever you want to call that. But heaven isn't a location. It's a vibration. And that's what Tesla was talking about. If you want to unlock the secrets of the universe, you got to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, because our vibration is much different than when we were first born. Your vibration was even different when you were in the womb. Think about it, breathing liquid for 9 months, and then you incarnate into a physical matter at a vibration of this flesh that you start breathing air. And then at some point, that vibration is going to change in your heart, and the energy in your heart, the energy has to go somewhere. So in a sense, you do have the community if you know how to look for it, because just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not here. Science has shown us that through the telescope, the microscope, the James Webb, the Hubble. There are many tools that have been introduced, and there's going to be more tools during our roaring 20s that will introduce us to things that are not seen with the human eye. But just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not here. So if you want to think in your spiritual pathway as not only just being individual, but start to lift that veil that there is a community that's just a thought away, and that's called the etheric world, the spirit world, heaven, afterlife, Summerland. That's where your friends, your family, your fur babies that have gone through death reside. And if you think about it, again, and I'll read something from a book passage a little bit later here in the show, but if they're only ever a thought away, and you ask, you believe, you take a deep breath, because breath is the connection to what is seen and what is unseen, right? Because you need your breath, and you can't see your breath going in and out, but we know we need it, just like wind and gravity. We see the effects of the wind. We know that if the tree's moving, we know the wind's moving it, but we don't see it, right, with our eyes. Or if I go and jump off a diving board into a pool, you know that you're going to land 100% in the water, because gravity is existent on our planet, but we don't see that. So there are three things right there: breath, wind, and gravity, that we use every single day of our lives. But if you take that breath in, you ask, believe, take the divine breath in, receive and perceive, because you're going to receive through many different faculties of the human body, including the skin, which is the largest organ on the body. But you're going to also perceive based off your learned experiences, based on your learned behaviors. Maybe you were raised in religion like I was, and so those will actually be part of your perception. But if you think about it, through the breath, through the reflection and introspection and meditation, you become aware of something bigger than yourself. And for some of you listening to today's show, that could be a very uncomfortable place to be. It goes against status quo. It may go against your learned behaviors or doctrines or dogmas that you've been, raised in. And it can be quite intimidating and quite, that's why some people shy away from that. What are others going to think? I know that I went through that many times. But, the price we pay for the piece the veil is not being able to show others what we see. Because, again, it's your own personal experience. It's your own personal perspective. It's your own prospecting. And that's the price we pay to pierce that veil. And when you pierce it and you don't get to go back, it's like being unplugged from the Matrix. When you pierce that veil, not being able to show you what I'm talking about, of what we see, that can be quite difficult. And so, we have to, allow people in the spiritual pathway to reach that journey for themselves through free will and through choice. I always reminded from my teachers, my mentors, that a teacher doesn't teach you what to see. They show you the pathway and unfold that pathway through the education, and then you decide what it is that you see from the teachings, through the guidance, through the readings, through the meditations, through the mantras, whatever that may be. So that leads me into my next category before our first break, and that's rituals and practices. Religions have specific rituals, a lot of ceremonies and practices that are prescribed and followed by their followers. These rituals often have symbolic meanings and are performed collectively. I can tell you my days of growing up in Catholicism, going to church, there was a lot of up, down, kneeling, stand, sit, kneeling, stand, sit, kneeling. A lot of that I could still recite to this day as a confirmed adult in the Catholic Church. I could still go take communion and still do all of those rituals and practices and know them because it was ingrained into me from an early childhood. But over my course of my spirituality, I don't practice that anymore. I'm not a practice Catholic anymore, but I still would know those rituals. When I moved to spirituality, this can involve various practices, and I am involved in various practices even to this day. Not only including prayer, which is meditation, which is thoughts. Let me rephrase that. Prayer, which is thoughts going out. Meditation is listening back to the thoughts and impressions that you've sent out to the universe. Mindfulness, yoga. I practiced Qigong, which is the study of life force energy and moving your body to move energy. It's a very ancient form of Tai Chi. It's the mother of Tai Chi, and it's called Qigong, which is a study of our own energy. Things that I use, there's over 5,000 different practical movements that you can do. So that's part of my rituals and practices. Vibrational chants, mantras. It's really just depending on your individual preference. And these practices are often chosen based on our ability to promote our inner peace, our connection, that vibration, our personal growth, whatever that connection may be. So when it comes to religion, the rituals and practices can be quite different. Religion, like I said, is very repetitive, very ancient, and prescribed by following those rules if you're a follower. And they're very, like I said, usually have symbolic meanings and are performed on a collective basis, where in spirituality, it involves various practices. You become this intuitive prospector, prospecting on many different things, and you'll find the one. If you search for it, you will find those practices to incorporate into your spiritual toolbox, if you will. Many different things that you may use. One day you may use yoga. Every day I try to meditate, I try to pray, I try to exercise and connect with nature. These are the things that are in my toolbox, but those are my personal individual preferences based on following the spiritual path. So that's the rituals and practices and the difference of those two between religion and spirituality. And we're going to go to our break, and when we come back, we're going to pick this up and continue to talk about religion and spirituality. Is there a difference? And we'll be right back here in just a few minutes. You're listening to Inspired Living Radio and Podcast, and we'll be right back.
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
One planet, 7.3 billion people. Only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free ascendinghearts.com.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer
break because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Inspired Living. Today's episode, we are talking religion and spirituality. Is there a difference? So before the break, we were talking about a few things. We talked about the definition of religion versus spirituality. We talked about the structures and belief between the two, community versus individuality, rituals and practices. The other thing I want to pick up on the other side of the commercial break here is organized institution. And what I found with religions, they're often associated with organized institutions such as churches, mosques, temples, or synagogues. These institutions provide a framework for religious teachings, ceremonies, and community gatherings. The difference I found from the spiritual pathway is spirituality can be practiced individually or within formal groups or communities. It doesn't necessarily require a formal institution and or membership. So I just want you to remember that your spiritual pathway is really becoming your own divinity, becoming your own church, where some people might find that blasphemous. How dare you talk about that you're a god? Well, in a lot of Jesus's writing, I've read a lot of different books outside of not just scripture, but writings about Jesus talked about this a lot. He's one of many great prophets in many different religions, but he talked about the God within, the connection of the divinity within, not necessarily out in the external world. So that that can create debates and conflict based on, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're wrong. And that's the problem with today's religions, is you see a lot of that, a lot of competition, versus it should be not competition. It should be to love thy neighbor as you love thyself. And it's just, sometimes when you get into these organized institutions, it's also based on money, unfortunately. And we've seen time and time again the lawsuits, the legal battles that come from money, from abuse. I know just within my own religious upbringing, how the Catholic Church has paid a lot of money out. I believe over 1.4 billion total, which is a lot of money. So that's, again, religion is great, but spirituality I find is better, because it allows you to practice your individuality within groups and or communities, and it doesn't necessarily require a formal institution, a monthly fee, a 10% tithing, or a membership. You can choose to do that, but that's the beauty of spiritualism. And it's just important to note that these differences that I'm talking about today on today's show are more generalizations, and they can overlap between religion and spirituality. I want to talk about unity. I don't want to talk about spirituality versus religion. If you notice, today's show is religion and spirituality. Is there a difference? Some individuals may find spirituality within that religious framework, while others may practice spirituality outside the realm of organized religion. So I just want you to have that in the back of your mind, that you may come to a connection through a religious framework. And again, I believe that the divinity, the intelligence and love is quite far superior in intelligence than we are, and they're not going to limit themselves to certain channels, you have to go to this church on this day of the week, otherwise you're not going to meet God or the divine feminine or the spirit world. I don't find that to be true at all, because time is, we're the only species that measures our life by time, and we're in these organized constructs of time, days of the week, 24-hour periods, where the spirit world is available 24/7, 365. Think of it like a 7-Eleven, I guess. But I just want to point that out, that you may find spirituality within a religious framework, while you may also practice spirituality outside the realm of organized religion. But ultimately, the distinction between religion and spirituality depends on your individual beliefs, your perspectives, your practices, and of course, your experiences. I do believe that my personal experiences converted me to move from religion to spirituality, and that was the great grief and trauma, or what I now write about as the TNT, the trauma and tragedy, at the age of 27 that really changed how I looked at life and death. And that was the unfortunate passing of my brothers, one through murder, and then 3 days later, older brother diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And along that same lines, my wife was watching her dad slowly pass away from the horrible disease, multiple sclerosis. So murder, brain cancer, multiple sclerosis during that time frame, a very tough period of my life, at the age of 27, really those experiences, I believe, looking back in retrospect and reflection, put me on the spiritual pathway to understand my own journey here, my own mortality, my own, how is my life going to end? And one of the things that I came across, and I just want to share this quote with you. One of the reasons that I do these shows, and I've been doing this for 8 seasons now, is, the podcast has become, it's successful, it's inspiring, but success is not just what I accomplish in my life, it's about what I inspire others to do. So inspire your mind through this episode. Don't be limited by dogmas and or fears. Have the courage to go down the spiritual pathway. And you don't have to leave your current religion behind. You can actually just amplify it, just like a guitar plugged into an amplifier is much more powerful. I'd say if you're on a religious journey, great. If you want to plug in that spiritual pathway as well and be more open and more broad in your perspectives, you're going to learn a lot more, and you're going to connect in ways you never thought possible. So again, success is not what you accomplish in your life. It's about what you inspire others to do. And that's what I try to do on Wednesdays here through Om Times Radio and through Inspired Living, is to inspire you to think outside the box, or as I like to say, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover that diamond within. So I hope this will inspire your mind and give you some food for thought to keep going down if you're new to the spiritual pathway. So again, there are some differences, like I said, between spirituality and religion. And, just to further understand the differences between the two, I find that focus on doctrine versus inner experience is another thing that comes to my mind. Religion is often a place of a very strong emphasis on adherence to specific doctrines, teaching, and or religious laws. These are their laws of the land. And these doctrines serve as a guide for, of course, moral behavior, and they provide a structured framework for understanding the world and one's relationship with the world and the divinity. Where in spirituality, I have found that it focuses more on our personal inner experiences and our individual interpretations of what a divine God or higher power is. Through religion, I knew of God, but I didn't really have that personal relationship with God or Jesus based on the teachings were. It was more of, I was taught to, whereas spirituality, I became more of a direct relationship. In Catholicism, I had to go through a priest to confess my sins in order to be saved, or pray to Mother Mary. In the spiritual pathway, it's not that at all. It's really, again, that divinity within and connecting to the higher calling, the higher understandings, the higher wisdom and love and intelligence that resides there. And it's developing, you to explore your own beliefs, your values, your own inner wisdom, and rather than relying solely on external religious teachings. Now, I still incorporate religious teachings, writings, including scripture, because there's just some fascinating, knowledgeable passages filled with wisdom and love and healing and transformation. So I still refer to many different books, not just scripture in the Christian Bible. I've read the Hindu Book of the Dead. I've looked at the Egyptian Bible. I've looked at a lot of different writings over the time. And that's just what we know. Think about what we don't know. If people always ask if I could have one wish, that would actually be given full access to the Vatican vaults and all the writings, because there's a lot of letters that were left out of today's Bible, over half really, and I would like to be able to have access to read those. That's probably never going to happen in my lifetime, but that's the one thing that I would love to be able to do, is go to the actual archives, the secret archives of the Vatican, which we know are there and contain many, many articles and scrolls from history past, to give me a broader, better perspective versus something that's edited, right? So again, the focus on doctrine versus inner experience is very important on the spiritual pathway, but I still use doctrine from my religious days as part of my spiritual pathways today and put that in my spiritual toolbox. Dogma and flexibility. I find that religion typically have a set of dogmas or fixed beliefs, including fear. I remember being told many times if I wasn't a good boy, I'd go to hell. And that was quite intimidating and scary. But I find that these dogmas or fixed beliefs that followers are expected to accept without question. And that's where I said earlier in the show, be careful of cognitive dissonance, be aware of groupthink, have the courage to step outside, be that wolf in the sheep's herd, if you will. But you're going to be challenged. You're going to lose friendships. You're going to lose family relationships. I've encountered all of that because I stopped just following the herd and started asking bigger questions, especially after my brothers and father-in-law made their transition to the spirit world. And a lot of times these beliefs are based on religious texts, traditions, and interpretations that have been established over time. But what really gave me pause is I'm only accessible to texts and traditions or interpretations that's limited or has been edited. I haven't been given the full menu. I've only been given a limited menu, and that raises red flags for me. That raises questions. Where in the spirituality pathway, it allows for more flexibility and openness to different perspectives and beliefs, and it encourages, I find, more questioning, exploration, aka prospecting, and the freedom to form one's beliefs based on personal experience, insights, and having the access to the full menu. I believe over time we will get access to more writings in that full menu, especially as AI is being borne out, as technology increases. We have the internet now. I was pre-internet, so I had to go to the library or look in the Britannica encyclopedia, to find information. Now it's all at our fingertips. So there will be, over time, especially during our roaring 20s of transformation and ascension and awareness, we will have more of that perspective based on writings. And again, just like the Dead Sea Scrolls that were discovered, years ago, there could be more gems out there that are yet to be discovered or revealed, which would add to the perspective, which would add to that menu of insight. I also find that the difference between religion is the authority and the hierarchy. Religion often have these authoritative figures, religious leaders, priests, clergy, pope, etc., who guide and interpret religious teachings for the community. And I find that these figures hold positions of authority and provide guidance on matters of faith and religious practices, and that's fine. A lot of them, too, you'll see make a lot of money. And I always thought, wonder how Jesus would feel about that if he was in today's age. Would Jesus be filthy rich? Or would he be filthy poor? I'm thinking of, the Saint Francis of Assisi comes to my mind. So again, these religious leaders have a lot of power, a lot of eliteness, and of course a lot of money. And I'm not sure that is what the purpose of religion is supposed to be, but that's just my personal opinion. Where I find in spirituality, the spiritual place is more emphasis on personal autonomy and individual responsibility, more of a direct connection to nature. The respect for nature. There's no central authority figure or hierarchy to dictate my beliefs and or my practices. And I, as an individual, feel like I have more freedom to explore and interpret the spiritual concepts based on my own understanding, my own intuition as the intuitive prospector, and my own experiences. And as I would throw education in there as well, because when I went down the spiritual pathway, I started to read from books that I probably wouldn't have picked up if I hadn't gone through that TNT at the age of 27, the trauma and the tragedy that really blew up my life. I find with religion, there's an exclusivity, exclusive versus inclusive, and I find that religions often have specific criteria requirements for membership, and some may exclude those who do not adhere to these beliefs or practices, and they may define certain boundaries or distinctions between believers and non-believers. With spirituality, I find that it tends to be more inclusive and accepting of diverse beliefs and paths. That's what really led me down this pathway. It recognizes that individuals can have different spiritual journeys and that there are multiple ways to connect with the divine, higher power, God, whatever you want to label that as. I've also found that the purpose and the ultimate goal, religion often provides a clear purpose and an ultimate goal for their followers, which is great, such as salvation, enlightenment, or reaching a specific spiritual destination. But they may offer a structured path and guidelines for attaining this goal, where the spiritual pathway allows individuals to define their own purpose and ultimate goal based on their personal beliefs, values, and experiences. The focus, I find, is more on inner growth, more on self-discovery, more on finding meaning and fulfillment in our lives. And again, that intuitive prospector to constantly be using my intuition to prospect the world within and also the world around me. So again, it's just a reminder, it's important to remember that these distinctions are not absolute, and there can be, variations within different religions and spiritual practices. I find that some individuals may find that spirituality, again, with the framework of a particular religion, which is fine, while others may practice spirituality independently, which is fine. Ultimately, the choice between religion and spirituality depends on an individual's personal beliefs, experience, and needs for spiritual fulfillment. Okay, so I wrote a lot out here. So I want to, as we get close to the end of the show, I want to just point out a couple differences to help you break down the differences between religion and or spirituality. Is there a difference? The answer is most definitely yes. So here are a few differences. Again, number one, organized versus personal. Religion is often organized with specific rituals, practice, and institutions, while spirituality is more personal, individualistic, focusing on the individual's inner experiences and connections with the divine, higher power, or what you define as God. Again, that belief system versus the inner journey. Religion typically involves a set of beliefs and doctrines that followers are expected to adhere to, while spirituality is more focused on an individual personal journey of self-discovery and connection with something greater than ourselves. Again, authority versus inner wisdom. Religion often relies on external authorities such as religious texts, leaders, and or traditions to provide guidance and interpretation of spiritual teachings, while spirituality emphasizes the importance of inner wisdom, guidance, intuition, knowledge, and understanding one's spiritual pathway. What's your journey here? Rituals and practices versus mindfulness and presence. I find that religion often involves the specific rituals that I talked about: kneel, sit, make the sign of the cross, do the Hail Mary with my crucifix, that kind of thing. Those rituals and those ceremonies and those practices, and they're performed to worship or to connect with the divine, of course. While spirituality places more emphasis more on the present moment, mindfulness, your energy, your frequency, your vibration, and again, what it means to have a spiritual connection. The difference on community and fellowship versus individuality. A religion often fosters a sense of community and fellowship among its followers, providing a space for collective worship and shared beliefs, while spirituality tends to focus more on individuality and personal exploration of one's spiritual truth, one's spiritual path, and one's spiritual experience. We talked about doctrine and inner experience. Again, I still use and incorporate religious doctrine into my spiritual toolbox, but religion does place a strong emphasis and adherence to specific doctrines, teachings, and religious laws, while spirituality focuses more on that personal inner experience and individual interpretations of the divine or higher power. Dogma, of course, and flexibility. Religion offers that set of dogmas and fixed beliefs, while spirituality allows for more flexibility, openness, different perspectives, and beliefs. And that's why we like to say the strength of a spiritist is our ability to shift our perspectives, always. Pardon me. Lots of words flowing out, lots of energy. Authority and hierarchy. Like I said, religion offers that authoritative figure, religious leaders, priests, clergy who guide and interpret the religious teachings, while the spirituality emphasizes on more personal autonomy and individual responsibility in exploring and interpreting those spiritual concepts through your own perspectives. So those are just a few of the differences. Like I said, one is exclusive, one is inclusive, one has purpose, one has more of an ultimate goal. But the differences, I feel, provide a general understanding. But it's important to note that they're not absolute, like I said, and that they can cross different boundaries, they can cross different religions and different spiritual practices, and you can incorporate those into your journey, which I've done over the last 25 years now. So I came across in my research for this show the difference, really, to break down today's episode. Is there a difference between religion and spirituality? From my perspective, from my experiences, the answer is definitely a big yes. And if I really just kind of finish up this show for today, so just going to break it down with a couple things to think of and think about, and then I'm going to close with a reading from a book that was published back in 1931 and has since been republished 73 times. So if we say religion in a nutshell worships God. Spirituality encourages oneness with God. Religion is God is outside of you. Spirituality, God, whatever that definition is for you, is within you. The energy in your heart that makes your heart go. Nobody through science has been able to determine where that energy comes from. Trust me, I was in healthcare for over 25 years, and I'd always ask my teachers. They knew the question was coming. Where does the energy in our heart come from? How is it produced? What's its source? Some call it the divinity, the spark within, the God energy. But without that energy, your heart doesn't go, and you don't have this connection to the reality of the physical world. So again, religion is God is outside of you. It's taught with that format, where spirituality is all about teaching the God is within you. Religion, I found, separates people who have different beliefs, where spirituality unites people regardless of their beliefs. Religion teaches people to be afraid of hell. I can personally attest to this. I was taught many times through my getting confirmed as an adult in the Catholic Church that through Sunday school, if I didn't behave, I didn't follow the 10 Commandments, I was going on an express elevator to hell. When I switched over to my spiritual pathway, it teaches people to create heaven on earth. Because sometimes I would argue that hell is right here on earth, and what we see every day, from war to murder to greed to vanity, and we see it with social media and the news cycle. So spirituality is about uniting people regardless of their belief, and spirituality for me teaches people to create heaven on earth, to create that vibration and atmosphere. Religion can be based on fear and restriction and dogma. I have definitely found that to be true, where in spirituality it's based on love, freedom, and your own personal experiences. Religion feels like being a single drop in the ocean, where spirituality feels like being the entire ocean in a single drop. Some of you may get that right now. Some of you may have no idea what I just said. Again, religion feels like being a single drop in the ocean. Spirituality feels like being the entire ocean in a single drop. Religion is based on others' experience, where spirituality is based on your own personal experience. So again, you have your own personal experience. You tell somebody about it, they're like, you're insane. If you write about it and let a couple hundred years pass, now it's a religious doctrine or religious text that's being interpreted. So one of the books I want to close with today, it's from a gentleman by the name of Arthur Findlay. There's actually a college in England I've been studying at for over a decade. It focuses on psychic sciences, healing, mediumship. And he wrote this book back in 1931. So this was his ideas and his perspective. It's called On the Edge of the Etheric. And in the book, he talks about, is the spirit world real and tangible? Does its inhabitants retain their individuality? Is it true that spirit people actually eat? What is the afterlife like? Do dogs, cats, and other animals survive physical death? What kind of house do the so-called dead live in? All these questions that I maybe you've never asked those. I know that I asked them many, many times, especially with my experiences. And all these questions and many more are answered simply in this book, On the Edge of the Etheric. It's one of the many books that he wrote based on his diary and his experiences from sitting in seances and watching mediums work. And it's subtitled Survivor After Death Scientifically Explained. And that's another thing I love about the spiritual pathway is its willingness to work with the scientific community, to have scientific measures, to have scientific data, to have scientific experiments based on a spiritualist pathway. So that's another thing I love about spirituality. So again, it was first published in 1931. It's been repurposed and republished 71 times to date now. But it says this as we close out the show. Our etheric body is in every respect a duplicate of our physical body. This may seem strange at first, and I found it difficult to grasp until I understood the fact that the etheric is the real body on earth, and that from the moment of conception, it is gathered round its physical matter, slow in vibration. Otherwise, it could not have functioned in the physical world, owing to its own finer and more rapid vibrations. The physical body is only a protective covering for the etheric during its passage through the earth life. In reality, our real hands here are the etheric hands clothed with a white glove of physical matter, and so with all other parts of our body. Our real brain is the etheric brain through which the mind functions, and it acts through this whether we are in this world or the next. The mind acts on the etheric brain, and the etheric brain on the material covering, which we call the physical brain. Those who have made the change called death can see our minds at work and study our etheric brain working under the influence of a mind in a way we cannot. They tell me that this is just like looking at a Technicolor film. Think Wizard of Oz in black and white. Think Wizard of Oz with full Technicolor. I've seen both of them and quite amazing, right? because the different vibration which impede on our eyes vibrate the mind, and that is these vibrations that we call sight and color. These pictures formed by our mind can be seen by the etherians, those in the etheric world, spirit, angels, whatever your definition is, and consequently everything we think can be read by them in the etheric world just as easily as we can read this book. We are really much greater than we think we are, very much so. Our mind is expressed through the physical brain is very limited, and only when freed from the physical do we comprehend its greatness. Our earthly mind we call the conscious mind, but it and what we term the subconscious, our subliminal mind, form the complete mind. So subliminal, subconscious, and the conscious mind. Again, the power of three. Our conscious mind directs our activities in this world, but our greater mind functions in the next. We obtain only glimpses of this greater mind in the occasional observed phenomenon of telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience, mediumship, psychic, and prevision. And on these occasions, the subliminal overrides the conscious for a limited time and then withdraws. Sometimes deja vu, sometimes dreams. Someday, again, this was written in 1931, someday, as man and woman develops, the subliminal may become more and more a dominant factor, but at this stage of our development, its intrusion is sporadic and confined to the few. When we pass on, our earth memories pass with us, but slowly they fade, and we are guided and governed by this greater mind, which has been with us our whole lives, building up our bodies, performing its inward functions, and making us what we are, though we know it not. One other important fact has been impressed on me time and time again from my informants, namely the next is a very real world, no floating on some fleecy cloud or some disembodied state which has no form or feature. There, we are men and women, just as we are here. The word spirit is only an earth term, and a bad one because it's so misleading. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Is there a difference between spirituality and religion? Yes, there is. Until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate, and most importantly, wherever you're at, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. And I hope you discover that diamond within. We'll see you next time here on Inspired Living. Take care, everybody.